When you start your vlogging journey on YouTube, often you want to start with a traditional action camera. A 360 camera definitely gives you creative shot options, but most of the times you just want a traditional camera for your primary vlogging angle. That's where the Insta 360 One RS comes in. It's a hybrid camera with both 360 and traditional action camera built into one, which means you buy one camera but you can do both. What's improved with the new camera? You have a new core, which means better processor inside it, which gives it better in-camera flow state stabilization. Now, I've tested this camera extensively, and if you're doing a lot of jerky footage, if you turn the camera to its high stabilization setting, this camera can take care of it, which means you don't have to worry much about it. In the previous camera, you had to go into the studio app to do the stabilization in post. That's no longer necessary. The processor is so strong that you can do it in the camera, but if you turn on high stabilization, there is a little bit of delay, so in framing there might be a problem if you use that way. But I generally don't frame it in camera, I just shoot it. Also, the battery is bigger. Insta is claiming 21% more battery life. Even the case is new. The quick release case makes it really fast to take it out and change to the other lenses. Even switching lenses, initially I was a bit apprehensive about switching lenses, how much time it will take, but once you get used to it, switching lenses is a breeze and it doesn't really take that much time. Insta360 comes with a host of mounts. If you've seen all action camera mounts, guess again. Insta360 website has some really innovative mounts which I hadn't seen before, especially for motorcycling. I found the handlebar end mount and the mirror mounts to be really creative, because that's going to give us a lot more flexibility. But one thing which you cannot do without is the Insta360 selfie stick. This extends to a long way. The biggest thing is, whenever you're using it, the Insta360 app can erase this selfie stick in the footage, and now with the better processor it actually does it in camera. That means you get a completely flowing shot, which means when we were riding the ropeway, it was almost looking like a drone shot, and with that you can create some really interesting angles somewhere where you cannot use a drone for. Maybe you're traveling too high a speed, or maybe it's too risky, or maybe even drones are not allowed. But if you learn to use this camera creatively, you can practically create a fake drone shot with it, which is going to give you so much more perspective and so much more creative options. Also, we do own a drone, and what we've seen is flying a drone is very tedious. You have to look at a lot of other parameters, which makes flying drones very time consuming, and in a lot of locations it's just not possible. With the Insta360 you can quickly get the selfie stick extended and capture the drone like shots quite fast. So that's a huge advantage if this is your first 360 camera. Apart from the new processor and the bigger battery capacity, the new camera also comes with a front microphone. So if you're going to use this camera for vlogging, especially without the external mic, this is going to be an essential. One downside is that this camera does not support a direct mic input, so you have to buy their external mic adapter. Though that solution works, and especially for motovloggers, there's no other way. But we've tested in past and we have seen that one adapter plus the linking to the mic, that's just two more things, and when audio recording fails, it wastes your entire footage. So if this camera could do one thing better, I would have definitely wanted the USB-C port to support a mic input, or to have a simple 3.5mm mic adapter jack for all of us motovloggers. With the camera being modular and you have so many movable parts, I expected this camera not to be waterproof, but actually I'm wrong. We put it inside water and it's waterproof. We didn't actually dunk very deep into it, but it can take a splash, or even if you submerge it in water, just a little bit of water depth, it can take it. For action cameras, I feel that should be there, because all of the time we cannot be so careful with our cameras like we can with our bigger mirrorless or DSLR cameras that we use. Action cameras are meant to be handled ruggedly, and on that note, I would love to praise its build quality. It has a very soft rubberized feel all over, but at the same time sometimes we've seen this rubberized plastic feels cheap in the hand. That's absolutely not there with the Insta360. The camera has a pretty premium feel in the hand. It's not too heavy as well, considering that the battery is big, and we've been shooting with it for all day today and we are still not looking that much into the battery. Probably 40% of battery life is still there, and I've used this camera for 3-4 times already all day. I would not have that much of a problem. We do preview our shots in the field and the battery keeps up. So this battery is definitely good, because I've used a lot of different action cameras where the batteries, we have always had to quickly switch them out. Plus they make a bigger boosted battery case, which if you buy that battery, I can only imagine how far longer that's going to last. Only downside to that would be an increased amount of weight, but I personally do not mind, because batteries keep running out and we have to keep switching. That becomes very tedious while you're riding. You always have to stop your rides. I prefer having this bigger battery. Traditional footage can be directly imported into your editing software, but 360 videos need to go through the Insta360 phone app. Because I use a PC for my editing, I downloaded their Insta360 Studio for Windows instead, and as soon as I connect my SD card reader, it detects and loads the footage into the app automatically, and it's quite fast. This video is not sped up exactly that much time it took to connect 64 GB of footage with the app, and they also have a plugin for Premiere Pro or Final Cut. If you want to work, you can actually start working directly into those editing softwares, but I find the app much more user friendly. Now I just load the footage and you can see the keyframes that I've already created. Because I've worked on this footage before, the app actually remembers my setting even though I have disconnected this SD card reader multiple times. In the intro shot, I was tracking the large structure, and in this hyperlapse we are tracking the tower. So you can even select for a part of the video to track. For the rest of the time you can stop the tracking, which can create some really complex movements quite easily. Here you can see how the keyframes are used to rotate the camera angle. The camera has an inbuilt gyro, so even when the ride rotates, it keeps looking at a fixed and locked direction. So I had to animate it to follow the ride's direction. It's really easy to figure out and took me just a couple of hours to master this app. Plus, the Insta360 community has a lot of tutorials and their phone app is absolutely great. It has a lot of trick shots even, which is not available in the studio version. Finally, it's time to export, and the default is Full HD 1920 by 1080, but I change it to 4K for maximum quality. After I export it, I can edit this into any video editing software just like your normal footage, and my choice of editing is obviously Premiere Pro. There is obviously doubt that whether you should buy one camera or whether you should buy a 360 camera separately and just have two different cameras. I would say if you're starting out, you can go with this camera because you may not have enough budget, but later when you go ahead, actually you can buy one more core and one extra battery. You obviously need extra batteries if you're going to use this camera extensively. So just buying one core actually is going to give you two cameras. So even if you're buying this camera at first, later you can make this into two cameras just by buying one core and one extra battery. If there's some things that I do not like with the camera, it's that when we use moto vlogging, we definitely want a super ultra wide kind of a look. This is a 16mm. This is definitely wide enough, but it's not that ultra wide. GoPro does it with software and DJI just does it with a very wide angle lens. This one will take you a little bit more expertise in framing, because if you frame it too high, your hands on the handlebar will not be visible. If you frame it too low, again the road ahead will not be visible. I know this is usable, but you have to really be careful with your framing if you're gonna use it for moto vlogging. Secondly, The screen is a really tiny piece of screen. That's not something I enjoyed because it's very hard to see the footage that's been shot, and I always have to go to my smartphone to check the footage, whereas with a little bit bigger screen I can generally check the footage in camera and don't have to reach into my smartphone, which I definitely prefer. Having the smaller screen lets me flip it around for vlogging angle and definitely makes this camera very rugged. It can live through a fall, but then again, tiny screen, not so usable in the field. The mic issue is that it requires an external mic adapter for your mics to go in. I personally would have liked the USB-C port that it has. This is the charging port to also support a mic input, just like DJI's Action 2 does. Apart from that, the Insta360 One RS has been a quite good and a surprisingly good experience. I liked shooting with this camera, and now it's just added to my fleet of action cameras, and I will be definitely using the 360 part of this camera in my upcoming videos. I do a lot of cinematography for clients these days, and in a lot of times I cannot take out my drone to take a good shot, but with this camera I can just fake a drone shot, and that is going to add so much more production value to my final videos. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon. This is Rahul. Goodbye.